A lot of Christians are out here dating like the rest of the world and wondering why their relationships keep falling apart. They're reading their Bible on Sunday and swiping through situationships on Monday. And somewhere along the way, the culture's playbook got mixed in with the kingdom's playbook, and now it's hard to tell the difference. There are a lot of angles we could come at this from: the church debates around dating itself, the frustration people have about the people they're meeting, the way social media has turned relationships into content. All of that is real. But what I want to focus on today is something more foundational. I want to talk about the 7 habits that Christians have quietly absorbed from the world and started treating as normal in their dating lives. These habits don't just hurt relationships. They grieve the Holy Spirit, slow down your spiritual growth, and they're on full display to unbelievers who are watching Christians to see if this faith actually changes anything. So let's get into it. 1. Broadcasting your relationship. Here's something I want you to think about before we go any further. When did it become mandatory to announce every step of your relationship online? Because somewhere between Instagram stories and couple goals culture, Christians started treating their relationship status like a press release. And it's causing real damage. Now, I'm not saying keep your relationship a complete secret from everybody. There's wisdom in having the right people around you: family, close friends who actually know God and know you, and an accountability partner who will tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Proverbs 15 verse 22 backs this up. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. And there's real value in surrounding yourself with wisdom. But there is a massive difference between wise counsel and public commentary. When you throw your relationship into the court of public opinion, you have handed strangers and casual friends the power to shape your decisions. Suddenly you're staying in something or leaving something not because of what God is saying or what the relationship actually is, but because of the noise around you. And you've seen what happens when influencers post their relationships online. Every argument becomes a community discussion. Every breakup owes an explanation to thousands of followers who felt entitled to it the moment you post it. That pressure is not from God. Guard your relationship. The right people will know. The rest can mind their business. 2. Breadcrumbing someone's heart. There's a particular kind of cruelty that looks friendly on the surface. It's when you keep talking to someone, giving them just enough attention to hold their interest, letting them believe something real might be developing, when you already know in your heart that you are not interested in them like that. You're just keeping them around because the attention is nice, or you want a fallback option, or you haven't had the courage to have an honest conversation yet. Let me be direct. That is manipulation. And it has no place in the life of a Christian. Jesus told us in Matthew 22 verse 39 that the second greatest commandment is to love our neighbors as ourselves. You would not want someone to string you along, waste your prime years, and keep you emotionally invested in a dead end just because it was convenient for them. So why would you do that to someone else? Christians are called to be people of truth. That's not just in our Bible. It needs to show up in how we treat people in our personal lives too. If you know it's not going anywhere, say so. Let them go. Let them find someone who actually wants what they're offering. That's what love looks like in action. 3. Dating while broken. This one is going to hit some people hard, and I'm going to ask you to just sit with it for a second before you get defensive. If you are walking into romantic relationships carrying a boatload of unresolved trauma, deep-seated insecurities, a distorted view of yourself and other people, mental health challenges you haven't even begun to address, and on top of all that, a relationship with God that needs serious attention, you are not ready to date. I don't say that to be harsh. I say it because it's true, and somebody needed to say it plainly. Here's what happens when we skip this step. We enter relationships looking for someone to fix us. We use our partner as a substitute therapist, a source of validation, a bandage over wounds that run way deeper than any human being can reach. And that is an unfair and heavy burden to place on another person. 1 Corinthians 13 verse 7 tells us that love bears all things. But that doesn't mean it's a license to make someone else carry what only God and real inner work can heal. The person you're with deserves to be loved, genuinely and sacrificially. But you cannot give that kind of love if you haven't first allowed God to do the work in you. Before you go looking for a partner, let the Lord find you first. Healing isn't weakness. It's actually the most responsible thing you can do before bringing someone else into your life. For trips before covenant, I've been noticing a trend. Christians not only traveling alone together but actually putting out content, full tutorials, on how to take trips with your significant other and not sin. And while I appreciate the effort to at least think about boundaries, I need to pump the brakes on this becoming something we normalize and celebrate. There's a meaningful difference between visiting someone's family across the country where you're staying in separate spaces with other people around, and booking a solo international trip with your boyfriend or girlfriend, sharing a hotel room or an Airbnb, with virtually no external accountability and no real way to create space when temptation starts to build. That second scenario is not a boundary, it's a setup. When you travel with just one other person, especially someone you're romantically involved with, you are in an extended, intimate environment with very little buffer. The accountability that keeps you grounded in your regular life is gone. Your willpower, no matter how strong, has limits. And so does prayer when you keep placing yourself directly in the path of what you're trying to avoid. But here's the deeper question I want to leave you with. If you trust this person enough to go across the world alone with them, if you're that comfortable and that connected, what exactly is standing between you and a marriage proposal? Because if the intimacy is there, maybe the covenant should be too. 5. Dating for fun. Some people approach dating the same way they approach scrolling through Netflix. Just browsing to see what's there, not really committed to watching anything, picking something up and putting it down when something more interesting comes along. And look, the world does that. But Christians? We have to be different. Dating is not entertainment. It is not a cure for boredom. It is not something you do because everybody else seems to be doing it and you've got FOMO. For a Christian, the entire purpose of dating is to seriously evaluate whether this person could be your spouse before God. That's it. The moment you lose that North Star, you start drifting into territory that wastes time, breaks hearts, and pulls you away from God's will for your life. And let's be honest about what casual dating actually costs. It costs you time you can't get back. It costs the other person their emotional investment in something that was never going anywhere. It opens doors to sin that wouldn't have been open otherwise. If you're genuinely not in a place where you want or are ready for a serious, marriage-focused relationship, that is completely okay, but the answer isn't casual dating. The answer is to build your friendships, invest in your community, grow with God, and date when you're actually ready to date with intention. 6. Cohabiting before covenant. This might be the most widely accepted habit on this list, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Cohabitation has been so thoroughly woven into our movies, our TV shows, our social media timelines, and the lives of people we look up to that it barely even registers as a red flag anymore. In fact, people pitch it as the responsible thing to do. You need to see what they're like in their own space. It just makes financial sense. Let me address both of those. First, people can hide a lot about who they really are even when you share a living space. Proximity does not guarantee revelation. You can live with someone for years and still be caught off guard after marriage because they chose what to show you. Second, the financial argument. Saving money is not a good enough reason to tie your housing, your legal future, and your daily life to someone you have not covenanted with before God. If things go sideways, and without the foundation of covenant they often do, a girlfriend or boyfriend has significantly fewer legal protections in that situation than a spouse does. It can get complicated and painful very quickly. But let's get to the real issue. Living together creates an environment where sexual immorality becomes the path of least resistance. The idea that you can share a home with someone you're romantically drawn to indefinitely and not eventually cross those lines is not realistic for most people. Hebrews 13 verse 4 makes it clear that God takes this seriously. And as people who belong to Him, our job is not to see how close we can get to the fire without getting burned. It's to flee from it entirely. 7. Marriage without vows. I want you to hear this clearly, because I think this is one of the most important things I'll say today. You are not a husband or a wife until you have stood before God and witnesses, exchanged vows, and made that covenant legally and spiritually binding. A ring and a wedding, that's when the title changes. Everything before that, no matter how serious it feels, is still dating. And yet so many Christians are out here having children outside of marriage, becoming sexually intimate with someone they haven't married, opening joint bank accounts, launching businesses together, buying major assets, moving in together, taking full financial responsibility for a partner's family, all while having no covenant. That is completely out of order, and it leads somewhere bad almost every time. Here's one of the most practical problems with this. When you give someone everything that comes with being a spouse before you are married, you have removed their urgency to actually marry you. Why would they pursue a wedding when they already have all the benefits of one? You have handed away the very thing that was supposed to be the reward for commitment. And then if things fall apart, which they often do when there's no real covenant holding things together, the fallout hits hard because you've given so much of yourself to someone you were never bound to in the sight of God. If you want the full commitment, pursue the full covenant. Marry them, or wait until you can. So there you have it, 7 habits that have crept into Christian dating from the world around us, often disguised as normal, practical, or even wise. But we are a people who are called to be set apart, not uptight, not loveless, set apart. And that's actually good news because when we do relationships God's way, they tend to be healthier, more grounded, and far less heartbreaking. The goal here is not to shame anyone, it's to raise a standard, because we deserve better than what the world is offering us in the dating space. The more we anchor our romantic lives to scripture and genuine wisdom, the less confusion, wasted time, and unnecessary pain we'll put each other through. Now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with any of these? Is there one that you've seen Christians struggle with that I didn't mention? Drop it in the comments. Let's have that conversation. Until next time, walk in integrity, pursue God first, and know that you are deeply loved. I'll see you in the next one.